You done? Okay. Okay. Today, this is what we're up against. We're talking about how to solve polynomial equations in factored form. That's a lot of words, a lot of jargon. We're going to talk about it. But the first thing we're going to do is understand this very, very fundamental principle or property called the zero product property. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to figure out what this might be. If I asked you, what's 5 times 0? I want you to write that answer down. Okay, write that answer down. What is 5 times 0? Write it down. Okay. Okay, then I want you to solve this one. Okay, what is 0 times 0? I want you to write that answer down. Okay. Next thing I want you to do, I want you to write down what is 0 times 3. Put that answer down. Whatever you think that might be. And last, I'm going to give you something different. I'm going to give you a number 7 times what? It's going to be a blank. And I'm going to give you the other side. It's going to be 0. Okay? So that's what I want you to do. I want you to, the first 3, write down what you think the answer is. And then the last one, figure out what the question mark has to be. Okay? Okay? Okay, let's review. Top one. What is 5 times 0? 0. That is 0. How come? Because 5 times 0 is 0. Okay, how about the second one? 0. That's also 0. Why? Because anything times 0 is 0. Good. What about the third one? 0. That's also 0. Because why? Anything times 0 is 0. Okay. All right, now. Shh. Good. You guys are pretty good. This stuff's pretty basic. These first 3 ones, right? Okay, now. All of those things, those first 3 problems, those are all illustrating a property. So let me ask you, if you know 7 times a number has to be 0, what does that question mark have to be? 0. It has to, that's the only thing, the question mark had to be a 0. That's the only thing that would fit there. Is that true? Okay, so you guys understand the zero product property. After all, the 0 means that somewhere there's going to be a 0, correct? And product means that you're going to multiply together. So we have to do some multiplication. True? Okay, here's the property. It says this. If you know if A times B is equal to 0, right? If 2 numbers or more numbers, if it's equal to 0, then tell me what has to be true. Then either A is equal to 0 or what? Or B is equal to 0. That is the 0 equals 0. So one thing you could do in your notes, what's a great question you could ask yourself over here on the left-hand side? Say again? What's a great question that could help you, that could be answered by your notes on the left-hand side? What's a good question to help you remind you of this? On the left-hand side of the notes here, you guys, I need an answer from somebody. Identify it? Identify it? How about explain? Explain in your own words, the zero product property. Sometimes I call that the ZPP, the zero product property. I call that the ZPP. Okay? The zero product property is very cool because it allows us to solve polynomial equations. So let me give you an example. We're going to solve this together. We're going to solve the polynomial x minus 5 times x plus 4 is equal to 0. So I want to explain a few things about this. I want to tell you what these parts are, all right? First of all, this thing right here, what do you call that? The x minus 5. What's it called? It's a polynomial. I'll give you a hint. What type? That's a polynomial, right? And it's a binomial. True? Okay, good. Very good. Now, what about this one here? The x plus 4. That's also a polynomial, and it's also a binomial. Is that true? Okay. This part right here, everything that you see here, this is called factored form. That's called factored form because it's been factored into 2 polynomials. So that's in factored form. So that's what I'm talking about when I say up here, how do we solve a polynomial equation in factored form? See that word up top there in factored form? That's what I'm talking about. You guys with me so far? Yeah. Okay, so let's examine this again. Oh, and more parts, okay? This is an equal sign, and it equals 0. That's the cool part. It equals 0. So this is a zero product property problem, because remember, if A times B is 0, then two things have to happen, right? Either A is equal to 0, or B is equal to 0. So we have to identify the A and the B part. So the polynomial here, the first polynomial, this whole entire thing, that represents the A part. Do you guys see it? And this whole entire thing here, this x plus 4, that represents the B part. Is that making sense to you? Okay, so if we know that I have a polynomial, I have two binomials, they're being multiplied together, and they're in factored form, and it equals 0, then I can use the zero product property. So I'm going to write this down again. X minus 5 times x plus 4 equals 0, and here's how I do it. I draw a line right down the middle as to right where they are being multiplied together. Now because it equals 0, I know that either x minus 5 is going to equal 0 or x plus 4 is going to equal 0. Those are the two things that could possibly happen. Right? After all, if I multiply these two together and they equal 0, one of these two things has to be true. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for both. 5, add or subtract 4. So x either has to be a 5 or x has to be a negative 4. And those are my two answers, 5 or negative 4. And I'll prove it to you. I'll check it right now. Remember, we started with this. X minus 5 times x plus 4 equals 0. That's what we started with, and we said the answers are either 5 or negative 4. Notice that those answers are just the opposite of what they are inside the binomial. Oh, that's pretty sweet, right? So watch. If x is equal to 5, here's what I would have. 5 minus 5 times 5 plus 4 equals 0. Well, this would be 0 times 9 equals 0. That's a true statement, huh? You guys following along so far? Is this making complete sense to you? Okay. Now, the other situation I could have is I could say this. I could say negative 4 minus 5 times a negative 4 plus 4 has to equal 0. So negative 9 times 0 equals 0. That's also a true statement because, like you guys told me before, 0 times anything is equal to 0. So that's how we use the zero product property to solve polynomials in factored form. You guys cool with this part? All right, we've got 2 boxes left. We're going to practice factoring out the greatest common monomial factor. So let me tell you what I mean by that. We're going to do 2 examples. We're going to do A, and then we're going to do B. And I'm going to give you a polynomial. And the polynomial I'm going to give you for A is going to be this. It's going to be 16x plus 40y. So that's our polynomial, okay? That's our polynomial, all right? Now, what we need to do is, if we're going to factor out the greatest common monomial factor, what we need to do is we need to look at the numbers first. So let's look at the number 16 and let's look at the number 40. All right? What is the greatest common factor of 16 and 40? Do we know how to figure this out? Yeah. Okay, who's got a guess? Is it 1? Is there a number bigger that you can pull? What's the biggest number you can pull out of both of them? No, you cannot pull 40 out of 16. 8. Who said 8? Okay, how'd you get 8? Yeah, okay, so one way you could do this, right, is write down all the factors of 16. 1, a 2, what else is there? A 4, what else is there? An 8, what else is there? And a 16, that's it, right? And let's take a look at all the factors of 40. 1, 2, what else? 4, what else? How about, is 5? Can 5 go into 40? Yeah. Can 6? No, how about 7? No, how about 8? Yeah, how about, what else? 10, good, what else? 20, but that's it, I can stop, right? Who cares, because I'm already past my 16, right? So let's see here. They both have a 1 in common, they both have a 2 in common, they both have a 4 in common. What's the greatest one they have in common? 8, that's how we got that number. Okay, pretty basic, right? So good, I can pull out an 8. So I can pull an 8 out of both of them. So I'm going to write that number down. And that's going to leave me with the leftover parts. So I'm factoring out an 8 here. So you got to ask yourself, if I pull out 8 from 16, what's the leftover factor? 2. Very good. 2x, right? And there's a plus sign between them. If I pull an 8 out of 40, what's the factor? A 5. Good. And then I have a y. Very good. So this is now the factored form. And the greatest monomial factor was 8. And the way you check is by distribution. What's 8 times 2x? 16x. What's 8 times a positive 5y? 40y. What do you guys think? Easy, medium, or hard? Easy? Okay, let's try another one. You guys are smart. I love it. Let's do this. 6x squared plus a 30x to the third. Ooh, here we go. All right, a 6x squared plus a 30x to the third. All right, first things first, let's look at the numbers. A 6 and a 30. Okay, well, the number 6, that could be a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 6, yeah? And how about a 30? A 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, and a 6. All right, looks like it's going to be 6, right? All right, let's take out a 6 then. So I'm going to have a 6 on the outside. Now, we have to look at the variables. How many x's do you have here? And how many x's do you have here? So what's the most you can take out of each one? 2. Very good. You can take out 2 of them, right? So you can pull out an x squared. And that's going to leave you with something. So ask yourself this question. X squared times what would give me back, or excuse me, 6x squared times what would give me back a 6x squared? 1. Very good. 1. That's just times itself. Very good. Okay, now let's think about this. If I take 6 out of 30, what's the factor? A 5. Good. If I take x squared out of x cubed, how many do I have left? I have 1x. Very good. And 6x squared times 5x will give me back the 30x to the third. So that is the answer. You guys feeling pretty good about that? All right. So I just want to mention to you that what we have done here, we've taken this polynomial and we've put it into factored form. Okay, I'm not sure if I made that clear or not. So we are taking a polynomial and put it into factored form. So how does that help us? How do we solve something that looks like this? It's going to be 3x squared plus a 15x equals 0. We're going to write down our steps over here. And the first thing we're going to have to do is put it into factored form. So let's get this into factored form. Okay, take a look at the numbers. 3 and 15. What's the greatest common factor that can be factored out? A 3. Very good. Take a look at x squared and x. What's the greatest one you can pull out of both? An x. Very good. What's that leave us with? 3x times what gives me 3x squared? 1x. Very good. Plus 3x times what gives me 15x? 5. Very good. And it still equals 0. So we got into factored form. Step 2. We're going to use the ZPP. What's the ZPP stand for again? Zero product property. You got it. So check it out. A number, here's the first number, times another number, here's the second number, equals 0. And remember the rule. It says A times B equals 0, then either A is 0 or B is 0. That's the zero product property. So I set it up. I split right down the middle, and I say 3x has to be 0 or x plus 5 has to be 0. And I solve each one. Let's see here. 3 times what number is 0? What's the number have to be? X has to be 0. Very good. Or I'm going to subtract 5, and I'm going to get x is equal to what? What? 2? Negative 5. There you go. Okay, so my answers are either 0 or negative 5.